everyone, it's Alice, and today we're gonna do a book haul. So I recently went on a trip to London, which was great, and when in London, you gotta stop by some bookstores. And I did. I went to Foyles, of course, and Waterstones, and I basically picked up as many books as I could fit in my little carry-on. Also, again, my voice might be a little bit weird because I still have a cold. Alright, so we've got a mix of different things, and I'm just gonna go through them as the pile is. And on the top, we have Murder Before Evensong by Richard Coles. And this is a crime mystery novel. It looks to me like a cozy mystery, just based on the cover. And it's about this guy who lives with his widowed mother and his two dogs. And he works in a church. And there's something about like him trying to install a lavatory in the church, like he wants to do that, and that like splits this little village that he lives in into. How a toilet can cause such a ruckus, I don't really know. But then again, when I think about it, people are really weird and very particular, so I'm actually not that surprised. But I think someone turns up dead at some point. How this relates to the toilet, I have no idea. But someone turns up dead, and this guy tries to like keep his community together because everything is just like falling apart. Honestly, this just sounds like the kind of book that I like. I love a good mystery. I love a cozy mystery. I love any like small town / small village setting. And I just find these kinds of books very enjoyable. So I'm really looking forward to this. Secondly, we have got a historical fiction novel. It's The Paris Library by Janet Charles. And I've actually had this on my radar for a while, so I'm excited to finally have it. It's set in Paris in 1939, and we meet this librarian who has it all and loves her life, but then, it's Paris in 1939, so we all know what's coming. The Nazis get to the city, and, it sucks. I think she joins the resistance and she gets through the war, but then at the end of the war, something else happens that's really bad, although I don't really know what. And this is the kind of book that has dual timelines. So one is set in Paris during the war, and the other is set in Montana in 1983, where this, like, teenage girl, I think, starts getting to know her elderly neighbor and starts finding out about the secrets of her life. And I'm assuming the neighbor, like the elderly neighbor, is the woman we meet in Paris. And, it just sounds really good. I've heard really good things about this, and I do love a good historical novel. Then we have got some more mystery with A Spoonful of Murder by J.M. Hall. And I found this at a table in Waterstones. And the big Waterstones in London, I love that bookstore, and one of the reasons I love it so much is that they're really, really good at like laying out tables. I don't know what it is, but I like my favorite way of perusing books is when everything is like laying flat on a table. I much prefer that to like actual shelves. I don't really know why. I think maybe it's because I can see all the covers. I just like it a lot more, and the big Waterstones is so good at making these tables. And in the crime section of that bookstore, they usually have a table that's filled with books like these, like this one and this one. And I always find so many good books at that table. I like seek it out. They always have it. It's a little bit different every time, obviously, but they always have one, and it's so good. I've had such good luck finding books on that particular table, and it's my favorite thing. That's a very long way of saying that this is a cozy mystery, and what drew me to this is that it has elderly main characters, which is a thing I've realized that I just absolutely love. I think all of the women in here, there are 3 of them who are retired, are like retired school teachers, and they meet every Thursday to come together and catch up and probably gossip a little bit. And one Thursday, they run into an old colleague, and then the next week, that colleague is found dead. And voila, they are involved in a murder. Another book I got with an elderly main character is Kingdom Tide by Ry Curtis. And this is about the 72-year-old woman who is lost in the wilderness in Montana after having survived a plane crash. That's all I read about this book, and I was like, yeah, I need to read that. I think we also get to know this park ranger who is a part of the search in trying to find this woman and Like a lot of time passes, like days stretch into weeks, and she's the only one who doesn't give up. But she has a lot of problems, it seems. And so it's just a story about these two women trying to survive, I think, and I just think it sounds so good. I love stories about women and different kinds of women and elderly women, and so I think this is gonna be great. I also really like this cover. It's a little weird, but I really like it. Next, we have got more crime with 8 detectives, and I just have to point out that this cover has like holes in it. I think that's so clever. Like, I've seen it before, obviously, but it's not done a lot, and I wish it was done more because I just think it's a cool way of making a cover. Anyways, this book is about this mathematician who at some point like figured out all the ways that a murder mystery can go. Like, he calculated it, I guess, and found out all the ways that it's done. And he wrote some like detective stories based on that, and then 30 years later or something, he lives in seclusion, and this editor finds him and wants to republish his story. Together, they sort of revisit all of these stories, and as they do that, the editor starts finding all of these discrepancies, and there's clearly like some stuff that's not quite right. And it appears that this author has a lot of secrets, and she finds herself in the middle of a mystery. It sounds great. Moving on, I got this book. This is The Life of the Mind by Christine Smallwood. And this is about this woman who is an English professor, and she's struggling with finding a permanent position, and she's just had like several miscarriages, which only her boyfriend knows about. And I don't know, I just thought this looked very interesting, and it also says on the back here that it's funny and brutal. And it seems to be about a person just trying to find the meaning in her life, which is always a very interesting struggle, I think. I think this is very much about this character finding meaning and joy in unlikely places, and it's all about like trying to find a good way of getting through life, which is interesting. And I've read that this author's writing style is kind of similar to Sally Rooney, which is very exciting. Then we've got a book that came out earlier this year, and I really wanted to get a copy, and then I kind of forgot about it a little bit, and then I found it in a bookshop, and so I got it. It's Fish Swimming in Dappled Sunlight by Riku Onda, and this is set over the course of one night in an apartment in Tokyo, and there are 2 people in this apartment, and each one is convinced that the other person is a murderer, and they're like spending the night trying to get a confession out of the other person, which is just like the coolest premise, I feel. It is a mystery novel in that we have to find out like who has been murdered, who has done it, and why, but it also sounds very psychological, and it sounds like it's about these 2 people and how they relate to each other, and it just sounds a little bit different and very interesting. It is also translated from Japanese, which is really cool. I always love a good Japanese novel. Next, we have got another book that I found at that table that I mentioned. It's The Bangalore Detective Club by Harini Nagendra. And this is historical fiction cozy mystery. It's set in 1920s Bangalore, and the reason that I picked this up is that it reminds me a little bit of The Widows of Malabar Hill. It sounds kind of similar to that, and I love that series. So if this book is anything like that, I will be very happy. We follow this headstrong, clever woman who moves to Bangalore to get married, and she's sort of resigned herself to live this quiet life. And then one night she's at this party, and she goes into the garden for some peace and quiet, which very much sounds like something I would do. And when she's there, she sees this like shadowy figure, and it's like this uninvited guest. And then 30 minutes, the whole party has turned into a crime scene. And I guess she gets involved in this somehow, like trying to solve it, and she starts sleuthing away, and it sounds amazing. It literally doesn't get any better. Second to last, we have got The Martian Girl by Andrew Martin, and this is set in London, and we follow one perspective set in present day and one set in 1898. In present day, we follow this journalist who becomes obsessed with this performer that was called The Martian Girl, who I don't really know what she did, but she like rose to fame before disappearing without a trace. In the historical perspective, we meet this performer who is called the Martian Girl, and I don't really know what she does, but she loves the stage, and she has the stage partner, and I think like what they do has something to do with mind reading, but I don't really know. And I guess this journalist just becomes obsessed with trying to find out what happened, and then I guess throughout the book we maybe find out what happened. I just love books set in London. I love historical books set in London, and I thought this sounded interesting but also kind of weird. Lastly, we have got a nonfiction book because it wouldn't be a haul without it. We have The 7 Ages of Death by Dr. Richard Shepard. And I honestly kind of got this book without even looking into it because I read Unnatural Causes by this author and I love that book. And I didn't realize he had come out with another one, and so I just grabbed it and got it. Shepard is a forensic pathologist, and I love reading books about that field and like from people in that field. I just think it's so interesting. And the first book that I read by him was just excellent. So I have really high hopes for this. I love a good book about death. I know it's kind of weird, but I just do. And like the best books about death, they're also usually very much about life. And I love that. Okay everyone, that was the entire stack of books that I brought home from London recently. A lovely stack if you ask me, and I can't wait to read these books. And as usual, I would love to know if you've read any of these and what you thought, or if you've picked up any exciting new books lately. I would love to hear about it. That was kind of it for today though. Thanks for hanging out with me, and as usual, links to my Patreon and Instagram and Goodreads is in the description if you want to check it out, and I will see you soon. Bye!